Still not hearing anything. Check, check, check. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. I'm Rick DuPree. Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio's live coverage from the Whole Street Church of Christ, where we are celebrating and recognizing commemoration of Martin Luther King Jr. and the 54th anniversary of his death, of his assassination, and the MLK Commemoration Committee hosting its Day of Remembrance here at the Holgate Church of Christ. And today we will have a special program. We'll have some speakers coming in, and that will be all going on here for the next hour here live on Rainier Avenue Radio. I'm Rick DuPree, and we are live here. And, I just want to kind of set the context. Again, the event is going to feature music, a diversity of speakers, highlighting the legacy of Dr. King and the accomplishments of local civil rights activists. In just a moment, I'm going to share with you the individuals that will be recognized and awarded today. The exact time that King was assassinated was 6:01. And a wreath laying ceremony, bell tolls, photos of local departed 2021 community activists will be displayed. And after the awards program, a reception also will be held. All of that here at the Holgate Street Church of Christ. We are live. And again, this is the 54th anniversary of Dr. King's assassination. That was back in Memphis. And if you recall, he was in Memphis and they're fighting for the rights of sanitation workers. And later in his life, Dr. King really had some primary focus always on racial equity and racial justice, but economic justice was one where he really was focused on, and we'll talk more about that. And then, of course, he was against the war. And so those are three things really that he had a large focus on. But later in life, and the reason he was in Memphis was fighting for the rights of the sanitation workers that were being treated unfairly. And so that, of course, was going on. Again, want to also let you know that there are going to be four individuals and a group that is recognized today. And it just, again, part of the MLK commemorative committee, their efforts to continue to just recognize and keep the legacy of Dr. King alive. Again, I'm Rick DuPree. If you're just joining us, we are live at the Holgate Street Church of Christ. And several nominees, as I said, or I should say award winners, people being recognized. So one is the A. Philip Randolph United Workers Award. And that's going to Larry Brown, the president of the Washington State Labor Council. And he will be honored. Leadership Award, and I'll talk more about Edwin T. Pratt. Many of you may not know about Edwin T. Pratt, but that award going to the CDCP&DA Board of Directors. You may say, well, Rick, what is that? And let me give you a little bit more information if I can find it here on the CDCP&DA Board of Directors, but that board being recognized for the work that they have done, and very, very important work in the community. The George Washington Bush Living Legacy Award is going to be awarded to Chris H. Bennett, the founder of Medium Newspaper and KRIZ Radio. So he will be recognized here as well. the Thelma DeWitt Education Advocate Award going to Dr. Brent Jones, a Seattle Public School Superintendent. And Brent just recently was made official, but he is the superintendent, has been in that role, serving in that capacity for a while. And he, the first local individual and the third African American to lead the Seattle Public Schools. He'll be recognized with the Thelma DeWitt Education Advocate Award. And then the MLK, actually the Senator John Henry Ryan Public Servant Award going to 37th District Legislative District State Representative Kirsten Harris-Talley. So that is going on, and we will have all of that for you. So what we'll do is we'll grab a few people and have a couple of interviews leading up to the official program that starts at 6 o'clock, and we will be live from the podium from 6 until 6:30, and we'll conclude our broadcast here. And then stay tuned, because I'll be live from the location here with a Monday Night Sports at 6:30, and we'll talk a little bit about the Rooney Rule and the changes that have been adopted here, taking effect immediately. And I'll have award-winning journalist David DuPree, formerly of the USA Today, and he'll give us his take on that. But again, right now we are live at the Holgate Street Church of Christ. And again, this is part of the MLK Commemorative Committee. They are putting together this annual event, a day of remembrance. With that said, I do want to talk a little bit about MLK and his role, but I also do want to just let you know that if you're a small business owner in Seattle who was impacted by COVID-19, the Seattle Office of Economic Development is investing $8 million of economic recovery funding. Yes, that's right. I said $8 million of economic recovery funding to connect small businesses to operating capital. The new Capital Access Program, it'll lower the cost of Washington State Small Business Flex Fund loans for eligible small businesses by paying down 25% of the loan principal. And in collaboration with community lenders, the small businesses can borrow up to $150,000 with 4% interest to use on business expenses such as payroll, rent, utilities. Eligible businesses can apply at the Flex Fund loan for a Flex Fund loan, and will be eligible for additional resources in addition to direct funding through the Capital Access Program, including financial counseling, technical assistance, and connection to community-based resources. A couple of other things on that. For eligibility requirements, you have to be a for-profit small business located within the Seattle city limits, have experienced a direct economic disruption due to COVID-19, meet at least two of the following three factors: no more than $5 million in annual revenues in 2019 or 2020, no more than 50 full-time employees or full-time equivalent employees, FTEs, and no more than 2 locations. So the application process opens on March 8th, and it will close on April 8th. For more information, just visit the Office of Economic Development website at seattle.gov. So, again, if you are a small business, there are resources out there for you. Take advantage of that. A couple of things I want to just remind folks of, as we are this commemorative program, and really just recognizing the work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And, he was in Memphis. He was in the city to speak to and speak about his growing Poor People's Campaign, and to support the economic protest by Black sanitation workers in Memphis. That was back in April of 1968. In the months before his assassination, as I said earlier, MLK, he really started to have a focus on the problems of economic inequity in America. And he organized the Poor People's Campaign to focus on those issues. And again, he was in, and as well as the March on Washington, if you remember back a few years prior, that was a big focus of the March on Washington as well. And in the month of March, he actually went down, March of 1968, traveled to Memphis to support the African-American sanitation workers. They were being treated poorly. And about 2 months earlier, about 1,300 of the African-American or Black sanitation workers in Memphis, they began a strike to protest low pay and poor treatment. And they asked, hey, Dr. King, will you come down? Will you support this? So city leaders in Memphis at that time really ignored the strike and refused to negotiate. And the workers were looking for help. And that's why they asked Dr. King to come down. And he absolutely agreed to come down there. Was down there on March 18th, visited, and he spoke to a crowd of more than 15,000 people unfortunately, the speaking the march and that event turned violent. The police were turning. Were violent against protesters, and it actually left one protester dead. Uh, Dr. King said at that time, "Hey, I'm going to come back," and they were planning to have another peaceful march on April 8th, but he obviously went down to Memphis. It was on April 3rd, and that's where, even though there was a bomb threat, and I think a lot of people don't know this, to his flight coming. To Memphis, he still went down there, and that's how committed he was to the cause, and was staying at the Lorraine Motel, which the following evening he was assassinated. We know about that, but it was interesting. His final speech, he talked about being on the mountaintop and how important it was for him, and he knew I mean, it's almost eerie that he had an inkling, what was going on. But if we're able to play, I'm going to check with Daniel, our producer, and if we're able to play a clip, it's just a short clip of MLK's final speech on April 3rd. Daniel, I don't know if we're able to play that clip, but if we are, I'd love to play that. And again, what it is Dr. King was down in Memphis and was shining the light on what was going on. But his final speech, I mean, almost was like, hey, again, he knew. He said, "Hey, we're going to reach the mountaintop. I may not get there with you. We're going to get over, but I may not get there with you." And that final speech was something. We're just going to take a small portion of that. And I think we're ready to play that. Okay, let me know when we are. But anyway, with that said, I just want to remind you while we're queuing up that cut from his final speech. We are live at, I'm Rick DuPree, we're live at the Holgate Street Church of Christ. And this is today going on. It is the Day of Remembrance Award recipients. 5 award recipients are being recognized here. A Day of Remembrance, the 54th anniversary of the assassination of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And we just want to say congratulations to Chris H. Bennett being awarded the Living Legacy, Dr. Brent Jones, Education Advocate, Kirsten Harris-Talley, 37th District Representative, being recognized as a public servant, Larry Brown, the United Workers, being recognized. Or I should say the United Workers Award, and he is the president of the Washington State Labor Council, and then the CDCP&DA Community Leadership Award going to their board of directors, I should say, getting the Community Leadership Award. Anyway, with that said, I'm going to turn it over, and like I said, I want to play just a short clip. This gives you just a little inkling, part of Dr. King's final speech on the evening of April 3rd, 1968 in Memphis, and why he was down there fighting for the rights of the sanitation workers.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper. If I lived in China or even Russia or any totalitarian country, maybe I could understand some of these illegal injunctions. Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right. And so just as I say we aren't going to let any dogs or water hoses turn us around, we aren't going to let any injunction turn us around. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some...
If we have time, we'll be able to play a little bit more of that cut. But it was just Dr. King was getting ready to talk about how he had been to the mountaintop, and he again, looking for this equality. He said, "I may not get there with you," and that was his final speech. Again, we're live at the Holgate Street Church of Christ, and on the podium, Eddie Rainier. We can show a picture there in a minute. MCs Eddie Rye Jr. and Sade Moore, and they are part of the MLK Commemorative Committee, and they are on the podium. And when they begin, we will go directly to them. The program should be starting here shortly. But again, we just recognize, again, it is what they're calling a day of remembrance, and they have award recipients, and among them, Chris H. Bennett, Dr. Brent Jones, Kirsten Harris-Talley, the board of directors of the CDCP&DA. They're receiving the Community Leadership Award, and Larry Brown of the Uniting Workers. So, rather of the president, he's the president rather of the Washington State Labor Council, receiving the Uniting Workers Award. So, again, this is the commemorative committees. Basically, just again with the remembrance, a day of remembrance of Dr. King and what he stood for, and looking at all these individuals that really embody what Dr. King was all about. And so that's what we will see. Again, the awards, I'll give you a little bit about the awards. The criteria awards are conferred on candidates whose work is primarily focused on civil rights, and on candidates' work, whose work, I should say, or whose example has had a significant local impact. Recipients of the award must characterize and embody the principles which guided the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in the civil rights movement, with the philosophy of nonviolence and reconciliation, courage in the face of great odds, humility, I should say, leadership by example, and an established commitment to promote and protect human rights of any race, creed, religion, nationality, gender, activity limitation, participation restriction, or sexual orientation. So that's kind of the criteria. And again, the 5 award winners being recognized here this evening at the Holgate Street Church of Christ. Well, and I mentioned a little bit earlier, and I just want to go into a little bit more detail. Some of the awards, and the awards in the name of some great individuals. Larry Brown, again, the president of Washington Labor Council, receiving the A. Philip Randolph Uniting Workers Award. The board of directors of the CDCP&DA, they are receiving the Edwin T. Pratt Community Leadership Award. And I mentioned Edwin Pratt, and a lot of people, may be familiar with Pratt Park, but in '61, Edwin Pratt became the executive director of the Seattle Urban League, and he oversaw rapid growth from a staff of 4 to 27 individuals during his tenure. And one of the things, Edwin Pratt, unfortunately, he was killed outside of his home in Shoreline, and that was back on January 26, 1969. And to this day, no one has been charged with his murder. But as the investigation and subsequent articles went, Edwin Pratt was part of creating a program that was making housing available to folks of color, to African Americans in particular out north. And as word has it, the labor union, the white unions, did not like that and ordered to hit on him. And so, again, there's a lot of information out there. There are articles. Dan Rayleigh, wrote articles years ago, and no one was ever charged, unfortunately. But Edwin T. Pratt, that Community Leadership Award going to the CDCP&DA Board of Directors. The George Washington Bush Living Legacy Award is going to Chris H. Bennett. He's the founder of the Medium newspaper and KRIZ Radio, which I'm sure most of you know. Brent Jones, Dr. Brent Jones, the Seattle Public School Superintendent, receiving the Thelma DeWitty Education Advocate Award, and that is going again to a good friend of mine, known Brent for a long time. Just so excited and proud that he is in that role as superintendent. And then Kirsten Harris-Talley, she's the 37th Legislative District State Representative, receiving the Senator John Henry Ryan Public Servant Award. So that all going on here at the Holgate Street Church of Christ. Well, again, hope you're enjoying this. And this is just, again, an event put on by the MLK Commemorative Committee. And one of the goals of the committee, again, to recognize and continue to keep the legacy of Dr. King alive and at the forefront, because, again, it's interesting that here we are, again, 54 years after his assassination, and so many of the words that he spoke whether it was in his final speech in Memphis on April 3rd, 1968, or whether it was his famous and well-known "I Have a Dream" speech. Unfortunately, many of the things that he talked about are still issues today. And it is something. As I look at his "I Have a Dream" text, and I want to just share some of that as we are waiting for the program to start here. It's interesting as you listen to some of the words that Dr. King talked about. And for example, and this is taken directly from the text of his "I Have a Dream" speech. He says, as we walk, we must make the pledge that we shall always march ahead. We cannot turn back. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of the unspeakable horrors of police brutality. Now, this is the "I Have a Dream" speech back in 1963. And here we are today still fighting that battle. He says, we can never be satisfied as long as our bodies, heavy with the fatigue of travel, cannot gain lodging in the motels of the highways and the hotels of the cities. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro's basic mobility is from a smaller ghetto to a larger one. We can never be satisfied as long as our children are stripped of their selfhood and robbed of their dignity by signs stating "for whites only." We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro in Mississippi cannot vote. And now we take a look at the attack on our voting rights. Again, I'm quoting from Dr. King's "I Have a Dream" speech, okay? And here we are nearly 60 years later, and we're still fighting these same battles. He said we cannot be satisfied as long as a Negro in Mississippi cannot vote, and a Negro in New York believes that he has nothing for which to vote. No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. And his use of imagery with his words was just incredible. And then obviously I'm going to quote a little bit more from that speech because as he started to talk about "I have a dream," he said, "I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men, all women, all people," back then he said all men, but I threw in all people, obviously, but that all men are created equal. He said, "I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice," again, his imagery, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I think we're going to throw it to the podium. That is Eddie Rye Jr., one of the committee members of the MLK Committee speaking.
His name is Minister Jimmy Hurd.
Let's take it to the stage.
He was on the team with James Edwards when they beat Garfield and won the state championship.
All right. Thank you so much for being here. When you came in today, you probably saw some beautiful children running around, sitting. We host an after-school program for elementary students, and so we're trying to be a community center and doing things to bless families and kids, and that's who they are. We've had the privilege of being on this corner. This is our 51st year, and we'll, of course, because of COVID, we didn't get a chance to celebrate that last year, so we will have a anniversary celebration the weekend of August 12th through 14th. All of you are invited to participate in that. And then, of course, if you don't have a church home, you're welcome here. You've been here, you know what it is. And so we meet at 10 o'clock, and I don't preach that long, so we're out of here by 11:15 or so, time for lunch. So, all right. But thank you for being here. And let's invite God in our presence. Father, thank you for today. We thank you for life. We thank you for community. And as we pause to remember Dr. King, we thank you for him and the life that he lived and the leader that he was. And as we're here today also, we're here to recognize and remember those who didn't have their pictures on the front page and were in the news, but those who were behind the scenes and those who even now continue to work for freedom. We thank you for them. We invite you into our presence today, and we just ask your blessings on our event. We pray through the name of Christ our Lord. Amen.
And now we would like to have the distinguished vocalist, one of the best in the country, Miss Josephine Howe, come up and sing. Lift every voice and sing and stand. Would everybody please stand for this, please?
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with the steady beat have not our weary feet come to the place for which our Father sighed. For we have come over a way that the tears have been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered. Out of the gloomy past till now we stand at last, where the bright gleams of our bright stars is cast. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, Thou who hast brought us thus far on our way, Thou who hast by Thy might led us into the light. Keep us forever in the path, we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met Thee. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget Thee. Shadow beneath Thy hand, may we forever stand. True to our God, true to our native land. So let us march on till victory is won.
Again, the incomparable Josephine Howe singing Lift Every Voice and Sing. We are live at the Holgate Street Church of
First of all,
Christ
I want y'all to know
for
myself,
the
my
54th,
co-MC here
I should say,
is
Day of
Miss
Remembrance and
almost
Award
Dr.
Ceremony
Sade
in
Moore.
recognition of the
She
54th
is,
anniversary of the Reverend Dr.
present
Martin Luther
chair
King
of
Jr.'s
the
assassination.
CL
Back
King
to the
County
podium,
Martin
and
Luther
Eddie
King
Rye
organizes
Jr.
Coalition organizes the march and rallies every year. And she also is the secretary of the board of the Central District Community Preservation Development Authority, which Representative Santos sponsored House Bill 1918, went unopposed in the House and the Senate, and the building on 22nd and Jackson has been returned back to the community. Okay? And we'll talk about MLK Gandhi later. She did something there too. And I understand that she delivered Dr. Raymond Lewis some more money this session. All right, now that's what we're talking about. So anyway, Sade, take it away.
Speaker selection. You want to speak?
Well, let's have Reverend J.J. Youngblood is the senior pastor at the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Baptist Church. And since this is about Martin Luther King, he will be first. Let me take him the microphone.
Okay. All right. I'm trying to fill this out as well. All right. I greet you in the word of the Sanskrit culture, namaste, which is the God in me salutes the God in you. The divinity in me salutes the divinity in you. As Brother Rye called and asked me to share, and as I began to contemplate about Dr. King, which I'd been doing some cross-referencing and things like that, because I just graduated actually last year in the inaugural cohort of the Adam Clayton Powell Fellows with my Doctor of Ministry degree. So I'm grateful for that. But I began to do some correlation, and as I thought about life and legacy with King, life and legacy. But then there are several things, a plethora of possibilities that come in there. Number one, life could be like Shakespeare said in Macbeth, that life is a tale told by an idiot full of sound and fury signifying nothing. Maybe life could be like the German philosopher Schopenhauer, who declared that life is an endless pain with a painful end. Or maybe you were pricked to peruse the pericope that was penned on paper by Paul Laurence Dunbar when he said, "A crust of bread, a corner to sleep in, a minute to smile, an hour to weep in, a pint of joy to a peck of trouble, and never a laugh, but the moans come double." And that is life. But somewhere within the bellow of our beings, we recognize that all of us have what is called in the Latin phrase a raison d'etre, a reason for being. And I believe King recognized his reason for being as it was instilled in him from the very beginning. It was just like the wise men when they brought the gifts to Jesus. They brought him 3 gifts. They brought him gold, frankincense, and myrrh. They brought him gold because gold is the king of metals and Jesus was the king of kings. They brought him frankincense because frankincense is the bark of the tree that priests would use and burn for incense. And priest comes from the Latin word pontifex, which means bridge builder, because Jesus bridged the gap between God and man. And then they brought myrrh because he was born to die. He was born in a stable, laid in a manger, wrapped in swaddling clothes, which was the equivalent of grave clothes, all because Jesus was born to die. So when King declared, all right, all right. 3 to 5 minutes? I thought you said 5 to 7. All right. But we are here this day, and I thank God and I bless God and honor God for Brother Rye in continuing the legacy again. And what I love about it, I just say one more thing. And that is this, is that what I realize is that the movement King was a prophet. He was a prophet. He saw ahead, because even a rocking chair moves, but it ain't going nowhere. So we want to move forward and just continue to fulfill the legacy, and I thank you for this opportunity.
Okay, all right. You want me to just go on down the line? Next, we have a longtime activist. Matter of fact, one of the people that was the founder of El Centro de la Raza, also organized all kind of marches, had me in, the only brother in there sometimes, but I had to do the right thing. Juan Jose Bocanegra.
Thank you, Eddie. God, I'm sorry, can't see anymore. Not because I'm blind, but thank you, Eddie, for this opportunity. You know, we were just talking, we were in high school when a lot of this happened. So it's, you know, not knowing what's going on is bliss for most of us. You know, we didn't even know that there was even racism in Texas. You know, we thought that everything that was going on was normal, not knowing that, you know, there were people out there that were actually doing something about this. We were just fighting in the streets. I mean, my high school was integrated at the same time that all this was going on, and all we did was fight with white folks. I mean, every single day of my high school senior year. And that was a sign of the times. The times have changed a lot, but yet we're still fighting, and things are still going on. And, you know, even a lot of those things that we took for granted at that time have become kind of an anchor for us. That feeling of, you know, we have to fight back. We have to continue to fight back as much as we can, whenever we can, whether we have the position to or not. You know, a lot of us are now getting to the point in time in life that it's time to put down the sword and fight no more forever, right? But we do remember Dr. King, and, you know, fighting is just part of our life. And thank you very much for this opportunity, Eddie.
Thank you very much, Juan Jose Bocanegra. Next, we're going to have a tune by Chandler Williams. He'll be at the Grammys next year.
You made a way when our backs were against the wall and it looked as if it was over. You made a way, and we're standing here only because you made a way. Standing here, not knowing how we'll get through this test, but holding on to faith, you know best. Nothing can catch you by surprise. You've got this figured out. You're watching us now. And when it looks as if we can't win, you wrap us in your arms and step in. And everything we need you supply. You've got this in control. And now we know that you made a way. When our backs were against the wall and it looked as if it was over, you made a way. And we're standing here only because you made a way. Oh, and you move mountains and you cause walls to fall with your power. Perform miracles. There is nothing that's impossible. And we're standing here only because you made, and we're standing here only because you made a way.
All right, all right. Next up, we are going to ask for Representative Sharon Tamiko Santos of the 37th District to come up and introduce the award recipient for the Edward T. Pratt Community Leadership Award.
Well, thank you so very much, Sean Sade. And I am going to ask the president of the board, but can we actually have all of the members of the CDCP&DA come forward? But I will just and ask Dr. Rayburn Lewis, who is the president of the CDCP&DA board, to identify the other board members, and James, staff. Sade is already up here. Good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure, yes, Reverend Doctor, please come forward. It's my pleasure to stand before you and to present to you the board, part of the board of the Central District Preservation, Community Preservation and Development Authority. This is the second such entity in the state of Washington that was created to protect and preserve and lift up the Central District community, particularly in support of preserving the history and the culture of the African American community and other diverse members of the community who first established it. As Eddie indicated, this CDCP&DA, as we often call it, was created in 2019 by House Bill 1918. That was passed unanimously by the House and Senate. I represent that to you because I want you to understand how incredibly rare it is for something to go through the legislature the first time around without having a single amendment attached to it, without having a single no vote attached to it. And it is because, yes, and it is because the vision that is entrusted to these members of our community, and that is to take the stewardship of what, when I was growing up, was called OIC and then became SVI. Some of you know it at 22nd and Jackson, and restore it to its original purpose of bringing economic development opportunities, job training, and education to these members of the Central District community. And I know I've already talked too long. I will allow Dr. Lewis to introduce his board and to tell you what they have envisioned for what will become the McKinney Center for Community and Economic Development.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Don't go away.
Come on, y'all. Everyone.
That's right. Let's get in here. Let's get everybody this picture. While we're setting this picture up, I'll introduce folks as they come around here. First, to my left, Reverend Dr. Phyllis Beaumonte. We all know the Reverend Doctor. Take a look at the. There you go. And behind me, Mr. James Bush, who comes to us compliments of the Seattle School District. To my far right is James King Jr., who's our interim executive director, who comes to us via contract with Historic South Downtown Preservation Development Authority, the other, our sister organization, who worked well with us. I'm not going to spend long. You said 50 to 70 minutes, right? Born out of the SOC, first of all, members of the McKinney Coalition. Mr. Rye, who else here are members of the coalition? Please stand, please. Members of the coalition. It was. It was your efforts that got this in front of the 37th District and Representative Santos. Your predecessor, Representative Harris-Talley, thank you, Eric Pettigrew, and our Senator Saldana, and they pushed this through. It's remarkable. Born in the late 1960s and early 70s, the building was completed in the mid 70s. It's had a fabulous history. The last few years have been a little rough, and it is our job as members of the community and our community board to pull this all together. I didn't, by the way, introduce the other board member who was walking around, our secretary, Sade Moore. So where are we right now? First of all, write this down or commit it to memory. McKinneyCenter.com. That is our website, and on there you can find our history, a fabulous history written by Reverend Dr. Beaumonte that goes back to the times prior to the early 60s and 70s and brings us up until now. We are now at the end of our second year of our board. We have a town hall that will be in June or July of this year, at which point we have new elections. And I want to big thank you to Representative Santos for getting us funded for an additional year. Thank you for that hard work. And we'll turn it over. Thank you.
And while Reverend Beaumonte, assistant pastor of Mount Zion Baptist Church, is here, I'd like to have her do a little reflection, 3 to 5 minutes, on Dr. King, what he meant to you. And you met him when he came to town.
I did. Well, most of all, we need to remember that Dr. King was a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ, and that is what stands out most in my mind. Dr. King and Dr. Samuel B. McKinney, who is going to be honored in naming, once we get the SVI building up to standard and working on behalf of the community, it will be his name that will be on it, because it was Reverend McKinney's vision, along with Reverend Leon Sullivan out of Philadelphia, that envisioned a building which would educate and inspire primarily African Americans and other people of color to begin to think about what they're going to do with their lives vocationally. And so that's why SOIC was born. And then, as you know, there were transitions with other names, and it ended up the SVI building. And I just am thankful that the community saw fit to have me part of the board of directors in doing this very worthwhile endeavor. I was born and raised in Seattle, been here a mighty long time, but I am just so pleased and so grateful that we are on this trek and we have our goals before us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and congratulations. Okay, all right. Okay, it's Claude birthday? Claude. Okay. Claude he's a vocalist. There's a song that the Dr. King and civil rights and the civil rights struggle used to sing all the time to give themselves inspiration and also endure the pain that was being inflicted by Bull Connor and all them guys. So can everybody stand up to sing "We Shall Overcome"? Here you go, sir.
All right. Are we ready? We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we overcome someday. We are not afraid. We are not afraid. We are not afraid today. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. Last verse. We are not alone. We are not alone. We are not alone today. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we are not alone today.
So right now we have a film. Hayward, you want to explain what's happening?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here with us. My name is Hayward Evans. I'm the co-convener of the Commemoration Committee along with Eddie Rye. What we want to do is, so just to plant the seed, April 4th will be a date known first in King County as a holiday. Rev, it's not a paid holiday, okay? But as a holiday, a day of remembrance. Remember, for Dr. King to do all the great things he did, it took people just like you and I. I look around this room, I see all the colors, absolutely beautiful, a rainbow of people. Well, what we've done is we put together a collection of some of the people locally who participated in the civil rights movement. What we want to do, Martin Luther King Park, 2 years ago, we had the name change to Martin Luther King Civil Rights Memorial Park. There are so many people here locally who get passed away and get lost in time. All their great, significant accomplishments that have moved us forward. From this point on, we want those people recognized, and we want to sit back and just think about, as you said, Rev, all the blessings, all the great blessings that we have. I am so grateful. Thank you, God. I am so grateful for all the people that I've had in my life. And please, if we can just take a few moments, because remember, it was 6:01 today that Dr. King was killed. I want you to remember some of the people who passed away last year. Look at the monitors, please.
Thank you, Hayward. Do we get the lights down, or can they see it?
Again, we are live at the Holgate Street Church of Christ, and it is a day of remembrance and award recipients, the 54th anniversary of Dr. King, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. And so special program here being put on by the Martin Luther King Commemorative Committee. And there were 5 award recipients, and we brought you a couple of them. The first was the Edwin T. Pratt Community Leadership Award, went to the Central District Community Preservation and Development Authority, their board of directors and their chairperson, Dr. Rayburn Lewis. Other awards that will be handed out this evening: the Thelma DeWitte Education Advocate Award going to Dr. Brent Jones from the Seattle Public Schools, their superintendent. The A. Philip Randolph Uniting Workers Award, and that will go to Larry Brown, president of the Washington State Labor Council. And also the final 2 awards, the Washington State Senator John Henry Ryan Public Servant Award will be presented to Kirsten Harris-Talley, the 37th Legislative District State Representative. And Chris Bennett, the founder of the Medium newspaper and KRIZ Radio, will receive the George Washington Bush Living Legacy Award. So that is all part of the MLK Commemorative Committee and their recognition, and they're calling it a day of remembrance, and the remembering of the 54th anniversary of Dr. King's assassination back in 1968 in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm Rick DuPree, and we hope you've enjoyed this live broadcast. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, I'll be joining you for my regular Monday night show, Monday Night Sports. Special guest David DuPree talking about the Rooney Rule. But again, live from the Holgate Street Church of Christ. Hope you've enjoyed our coverage of the Day of Remembrance award recipients being awarded here at the 54th anniversary of Dr. King's assassination. That does it for us here, and I'll be back with you in a few minutes with Monday Night Sports right here on Rainier Avenue Radio.